Hey there, podcast listeners. Exciting news. My new audiobook, The Short Book Formula, A Financial Professional's Guide to Writing a Book in 6 Weeks to Attract Ideal Clients, is out now. And the best part, for a limited time, we're offering this audiobook to you for free. Hurry over to www.theshortbookformula.com and claim your copy now. And now, on to our show.
Hey everyone, this is Paul McManus, the host of the $1 Million Producer Show, and I am here today with a very special guest, Liz Briggson. Liz is the Director of Education and Partnerships at a company called Incorsa, which we'll get a lot more into during the course of this interview. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. And I got to know Liz personally about a month ago, or about 2 months ago maybe. And I was working with a business partner of mine, Alex Sonkin, who is the founder of a company called the Due Diligence Project and the VFO Hub. And I think the two of you have had a long-standing relationship.
Yes.
What Alex and I were doing is we were putting together a summit for CPAs. And so our goal was to attract as many qualified CPAs as possible to our one-day summit that we held roughly a month ago. And Alex and the Due Diligence Project, have a lot of members, decent sized email list, a lot of activity on LinkedIn. And we've done it before by ourselves, meaning that we hosted ourselves and we did it on Zoom. But Alex's idea was to go ahead and partner with you on this. I could say that was, and we'll probably get into why, but that was one of the best decisions that he made, that we made. And I just want to really showcase the value that you bring, especially to, I would say, anybody that wants to get successfully in front of CPAs. And so my audience is primarily financial planners, financial advisors, some CPAs, but I know that they're always looking for strategies to successfully position themselves as a go-to source for CPAs, and that's the conversation we're going to have today. So before we get into the meat and the details of that, tell me a little bit more. So who is Liz Briggson? What led you to becoming to starting this company? I believe with your husband and some partners. Who are you?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation. And yeah, so my name is Liz Briggson, and I am Director of Education and Partnerships for Incorsa. We had such a successful summit with the Due Diligence Project last month. It was so much fun, and we had a chance to do something a little different, didn't we, Paul? Where we had 4 events, 5 hours, went back to back, and touched probably over 500 accountants who sat in on those different sessions throughout the day. It was fun. It was so fun. And I was excited to stretch my legs at the end because it was action packed and we were just like locked in focused. So that was a great way to get to know you. And I really, really enjoyed working with you together as we were doing the marketing and promotions and the planning for that event. So to answer your question, kind of like going back, how did I get here and what is Incorsa? And I guess I'll start kind of at the beginning. So my husband and I met at PricewaterhouseCoopers. We were both audit associates in a mid-sized market here in Michigan. And as he and I were getting to know each other, we would have dinner occasionally, and that got a little more frequent. And we would talk about, what did we want to be when we grow up? And one of the things that we would kind of always come back to is we both had this like entrepreneurial itch and this entrepreneurial bug, as a lot of people call it. And so we both had great careers, relatively short tenure at public accounting, but just wonderful experience in public accounting. And then we both went into corporate finance, and that's a pretty popular career path for young professionals who start out in public accounting. And we did corporate finance each for Fortune 500 companies here in Michigan. And we had great experiences. We worked with great teams. And for Matt, Matt is my husband's name. He's very much a problem solver. And one of the problems that he identified is CPAs were having kind of this like tipping point where they were like being very successful. They earn their CPA license, they go into corporate finance, and depending upon the budgets that corporate finance had, their corporate finance teams, they were kind of struggling to determine if they were going to keep their license active because they were having difficulty finding educational programs that they could afford to help them maintain their license and get those 40 hours per year, which is pretty much what most all states require. So that was a problem that he identified. He wanted to solve that. He wanted to solve that through having free and affordable continuing education online. So that's when he founded Incorsa. He brought in a couple other individuals who had a similar vision, and 3 of those individuals were technology partners that have been with us pretty much since the beginning. So that's how Incorsa started. It started to solve the problem so that professionals, whether they were in smaller accounting firms or corporate finance positions, would have access to, the best education out there in a way that they could afford it. Whether, that means you're at your computer, you don't have your travel budget, you can just sit in and listen to the best thought leaders out there without having to go anywhere or access really, really expensive programs. So that was how Incorsa came to be. That was in 2014. I came along and joined in 2017. And my experience, I was very fortunate. I had great experiences with my continuing education and the budgets that were made available to me. So I'm very passionate about continuing education, and I almost came at it from a different angle than Matt. Matt came at it from let's solve this problem so that professionals can keep their licenses active. And I came at it saying, wow, when someone is given the resources to access great continuing education, it can be a career changer. So for me personally, I was able in my position to pursue training in the valuation space. Mm-hmm. And that gave me so much flexibility in my career because I was able to go from corporate finance and do consulting with a business valuation firm. And that, keeping my CPA license active and then pursuing additional training gave me so much flexibility in my career. So that's one of the reasons I'm very passionate about continuing education is, not only does it help us do better for our teams, for our organizations, for our bosses, our stakeholders, our peers, but as individuals, and I think that's really important in the economy that we have today, is being as agile and nimble, as flexible in our skill set as possible. And for financial professionals, for CPAs, a big part of that is keeping our licenses active. So our story really is, starting out with this entrepreneurial dream. We didn't know what that would look like then, but now through Incorsa, we're able to connect with professionals who are serving accountants. And also, last Thursday, I hosted 3 webinars and we had over 1,000 accountants across those 3 webinars. And that gets me so excited. I love that we're able to serve accountants in that way.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's many cool things that you said there. One of the things that I think our audience will be very interested in, and the problem, you mentioned that it was started by solving a problem. And so, it was a problem for CPAs or for CPAs. The problem I see for the financial advisor, not the CPA per se, but for the financial advisor and financial planners, is that, it makes a lot of sense for a financial advisor to build CPA relationships. And it makes sense because oftentimes the CPA has any number of clients. Oftentimes they're, busy, doing their core function and don't always necessarily have the time or space to do proactive advice. And I think this might be changing for certain CPA firms, but from the financial advisor standpoint, what they do is that's their whole thing is, proactive solutions to financial problems. And rightly so, they've identified CPAs and accountants as people that they can partner with and get referrals and grow their practice. On the flip side of that, my sense and understanding is that on the CPA accountant side, I think that they're being constantly, I'll use the word bombarded by financial advisors and financial planners telling them that they can help them. But, the biggest challenge is trust, right?
Absolutely.
It's if you have dozens and dozens of people saying, hey, I can help you, a CPA is not going to want to refer out their very best clients to someone who they don't necessarily know, don't necessarily trust. And so there's just this whole breakdown of what could be a beautiful partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question to me becomes, how can a financial advisor successfully build relationships with CPAs that are based off of trust, so that then the CPA wants to make those referrals because it helps them solve a problem. It helps them look
Absolutely.
good to the extent that they have confidence that the person that they're referring to really is legitimate and will help them. So how does Incorsa potentially help solve that problem that the financial advisor has, which is that they want to build trust, they want to build CPA relationships, but they have to do so in a way that is credible and that the CPA buys into?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think that's a question that all marketers, all practice developers, all business leaders are trying to solve, is how do you build that trust? And when I have conversations with companies and individuals who are looking to get to know accountants and let accountants get to know them, I always encourage the long-term focus, whether it's an email strategy or a LinkedIn strategy or a content marketing webinar strategy. It comes down to consistency, clarity of message and purpose, and just having that long-term mentality. And it really, I think it's a very much a snowball effect where you have to put yourself out there. You have to put yourself out there consistently and authentically, and know what is your message and who do you expect your message to attract, and who do you want to attract to your message, and just be very, very consistent. And there's some individuals out there who are doing a great job at that. And it just definitely, I think the key element is just the long-term focus and consistency.
Yeah. I would add to that. So I totally agree with what you said. I'd also add to it that, when I was working with you about a month or two ago, and we were planning on putting together the Due Diligence Project Summit, we put it together as a one-day summit. And what that meant is that we had 4 educational courses that we did with you.
That's right.
The course of a day. And then you brought up earlier in the conversation that we wanted to make it as an event, as much of an event as possible, even though we're all on, Zoom or on other online tools, and we're all working remotely from our home offices typically, especially now in the age of coronavirus. So we actually had a pre-summit. So, we invited everybody to attend. We had a cocktail reception the night before. At the end of the 4 things, we had an optional, essentially, sales conversation so people could choose to join the Due Diligence Project. And we had overwhelming response from from a couple of different angles. The first was that, we promoted it internally to, our email list and to, people that were associated with it on LinkedIn. And I believe that the numbers broke down to be about 250, firms sign up, CPA firms sign up. We then asked you if you would promote it as well to your community of Incorsa, and I think you have a pretty significant list there.
We do.
It doubled. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes, we do, and it's growing.
And it doubled, and instantly it doubled to 500. So we were absolutely thrilled, or actually over 500. We were absolutely thrilled with the results. We got all the, so not only did they attend, and it was like the other thing I have to add is that you do a webinar, and you're lucky if you get like 20% to sign up, and who knows if they're actually paying attention. I think on average, we had like 60 to 70% show up rate. So for everyone that signed up, we had 60 to 70% show up. And because there were CPE credits involved, they actually had to pay attention the whole time to it. And that's, from a marketer's perspective, that's like the dream. You get people to sign up, to show up, to pay attention, because if you have a good offer at the end of it, people are going to sign up. And we had an extremely positive result at the very end where people immediately signed up to join the Due Diligence Project, but from many different aspects, from you helping us to promote it, to you helping to add that level of credibility because of the CP credits and the warm context that you've already cultivated over years. I mean, it all worked out beautifully.
I mean, it was so great just to see the process work and how well our processes worked together. That was, so rewarding and so gratifying just to hear how thrilled you were with the success. And we were thrilled to see the response, right? And I think that's where working together with a company who says, hey, we have an audience who is interested in what we have to say, but we'd like to grow that audience, and we have content that fits someone who's new and being newly introduced to us, but it also fits the people who have known us for a while. And maybe those contacts, those prospects, like they're probably much further along in the buying decision than someone who's brand new. And they're probably they're probably closer to that decision point, and they probably just need to hear something or hear a couple things that help them make that decision. And that's like, a great thing about whether it's a podcast or a webinar or, a marketing, just a marketing piece, or maybe it's a one-on-one meeting to just answer those questions and help someone feel confident in decision. But what's great about a live webinar and a program, a summit like what we worked on together, is we could access both groups of people.
Yep.
So when we met and we put that whole program together, because that was a big investment. It was a big investment of time and materials to put all that together. We put that program together, but we were able to double the amplification of the message. So now when we do this again, we have, people who have made decisions. So that's people who can tell the story about why they made a decision and what the difference it's made for them. We have now a really good number of people, right? A couple hundred at least, who are brand new to this whole concept of, in this case, the due diligence project, who will join us with familiarity.
Yep.
And we'll get new people the next time we do it. And I think that's just a continual effort of telling the story, being consistent, and growing the audience. Each time we do it, we're going to grow the audience more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just if you think about, for any person doing marketing, and I love marketing. I do marketing. I primarily do it on LinkedIn. But the breakdown always, I always analyze what works and what doesn't work, and the breakdown tends to happen with, especially when people target CPAs, is how do you establish trust, right? How do you establish trust? And what you provide as a tool, I think, second to none. I think that's second to none to be able to establish trust, so that the right people, the CPAs, they see you as a thought leader. They are willing to give you that chance, and you have essentially third-party, endorsement, if you will, because it's showing up on a recognized platform that provides CP credits. People pay attention and all those good things. In terms of financial advisors, anything that maybe I haven't asked you that might that you can think of that they should consider or evaluate when it comes to potentially working with you in terms of coming onto your platform and building those relationships with CPAs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I want to make sure I touch on that, like in terms of specific to financial advisors. I also wanted to circle back, and you talked about the CPE credit, and just emphasize for accountants, because accountants are very busy. Having a program that allows a CPA to earn their continuing education credit is a really, really value added way to reach and connect and have those conversations with accountants. So that, I think, and just thinking about, specifically in the land of content marketing webinars, some of the numbers and statistics that have been shared with me is that in a regular webinar, because anyone, right, can get Zoom, they can offer their own webinar. With accountants, I think that rate is like 20 to 30% of accountants might attend. And that's of the number that register. Yep. If you have a CPE, so continuing education webinar program, I think this is what you were getting to earlier, Paul, and you are able to offer those accountants credit, like we see 65 to 70% of the CPAs who sign up attend. And so that, it's something I think it's important for financial advisors to know if they're considering content marketing education programs, and any other organization, individual who's looking at offering education to accountants. There's a really big difference. And if you think about like the overall investment, investing in content is a big investment. So it makes the most sense to magnify and amplify the number of people that can hear, because if you're going to put, I recently spoke with a presenter who put about a week into a presentation. Now, hopefully you have a chance to present that numerous times, but hopefully each time you present it, the audience is as big as possible. And so I think that's, a really important element to consider in building relationships with CPAs through thought leadership.
Yeah, but definitely, and just, kudos to you guys, because I mean, we had I mean, once again, we were absolutely thrilled with the result. Because I was planning this on behalf of the Due Diligence Project, and if I recall correctly, initially we're like, okay, we want to get 250 people to sign up to register.
Yeah.
And with the partnership with you, we had, I want to say, 560 people register. So we more than double our actual goal, right?
Yes.
More than
Yes.
double our goal. Originally, and this, I'm just going to restate this because it's so important. We were, in addition to our existing list, we were considering spending thousands of dollars on, advertising, whether it's through LinkedIn or Facebook. And we ended up spending virtually nothing because we saw the effectiveness of partnering with you. And so the cost of it was, just from a, ad spend, you saved us the whole ad spend that more than paid for the course. But the end result is that we had a set number of new members that we wanted to immediately enroll into the Due Diligence Project, and we exceeded that. So, so
awesome.
check. Now, I'd like to say that as a marketer, this happens all the time. It doesn't. And so when you find these, magic formulas and these, magic elements, and I think the CP credits was a very important part to that, then you just want to repeat the process as much as possible. So we're already planning on doing our next event with you. I believe it's in July.
Yeah, end of the month.
We already have the formula down. So, we're already anticipating great success. And so now the question is more, okay, how do we onboard all these people?
That's right. Yeah.
You're causing us problems. It's like we weren't expecting all these new people. You gave us these new people. So we have new problems to deal with.
Those are the problems that we love, right? Yeah, exactly. I think something that's there to unpack too, Paul, is the offer. And that's something that you worked really hard to craft. Yeah. Because, you think about, like, we talked about, like, the funnel, like the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, and the reach, right? Like the reach is there with CPE webinars. The success really comes with that offer and positioning the right offer. And so I might even just throw that question back to you and just like ask you to share, as you were thinking about working with us and what that offer was at the end of your program. How did you put that together? Because that's at the end of the day, that's what helps someone just say, like, yes, I'm in, is like that appropriately crafted offer.
Sure. No, 100%. And thank you for recognizing that, because we put a lot of thought into that. So, it's how do you, quote unquote, monetize all of this, and how do you ideally do so immediately? And that's really the whole idea. In the online world, there's the notion of a summit, which is, you invite people to in a summit essentially is, it's not just one webinar, but it's multiple webinars, packed together, say on one day or potentially multiple days. But it's event-based, meaning that it's not available anytime. It's only during this 1, 2, 3 days. And so what happens is that if you craft the messaging right, large numbers of people want to show up, and they do show up and they pay attention because it's only on these certain dates. So then the question becomes, okay, you have all these people that are registering, participating, how do you have your short-term strategy, which is the instant monetization, and how do you have your longer-term strategy, which is, to build, more revenue streams over time. And so our instant approach was to craft a new membership level to join the Due Diligence Project at a price point that we thought was very attractive to everybody, that essentially if they had any interest that they would sign up for, which is what we successfully did. But what that allowed for is just the instant monetization of the whole thing. And so we left the event, with a lot more money in our pocket. And that was just step one of the revenue streams, because now there's a lot more opportunities to further monetize this. But, it's a short term, but as a marketer, you have to think these things through, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And so the more you think them through, the more ability you have to pay for your cost of marketing immediately, so that it's not out of pocket. And then you have the ability to do all those other great things that you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that. And I saw that and saw how that worked so well. You didn't start with the, hey, I want to be everything to you tomorrow. Yeah. It was, here's this very specific, easy to describe, easy to invest in, way to engage. And let's get started there.
Exactly.
And I think for every business, there is an opportunity to form essentially productizing a service.
And what's interesting now is that, part of the offer was to have a call with Alex and a call with me.
Yes.
And I've had a number of these calls now with new members. And a big part for me is just, I want to listen and find out. I'm essentially treating them as insights interviews so I can understand their mindset, why they joined,
right,
what next. And it's so gratifying because, everybody wants the next thing now. They've come into, we'll call it the basic level.
yes.
And they're like, what's next? What's next? What's next? But if we had started with the next thing,
right,
too much too soon. I love the dating analogy for marketing, right? It's okay. You meet someone, you have coffee, maybe then you go to a movie, you go to dinner or a movie, and over time you might get married. But if you try to, skip steps there, it's not going to work out very well.
Right. They're like, wait, and actually I worked with someone who said she went out on one date, and at the end of the date, and this was an internet date that she met. So they got matched online. So it wasn't even like they had mutual friends.
Yeah.
I had like say, hey, you must meet. You guys are destined to be together. It was like, okay, like I saw your profile, you saw my profile. Let's go out to dinner. We have a couple things in common. End of the dinner, this guy's like, we need to get married and have kids. And she was like, see ya. Too bad.
I mean, they could have been a great match, but if you, that's what people do wrong in marketing is that they're essentially saying, hey, let's get married. And everybody's repulsed by it.
Right.
And you have to have the strategy to naturally and gradually go to the next step. And to the extent that you can create commitment in that process, you're better off, right? So our first offer was relative, was creating commitment, which is first show up, sign up for the event. Second, show up to the event. Third, pay us a reasonable small amount of money, which is like $100 a month, so it's not too small.
Right.
But now that leads to the next step and the next step and the next step.
Yeah.
But it 100% mirrors human relations and how successful human relationships work.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, okay, we went out to a really nice dinner. What's next?
As we're talking, the other thing that I wanted to just highlight is that I know a number of advisors, and sometimes people are more generalists where they they don't specialize as much. But then you have a number of people that are very much specialists. So, for example, maybe they do what's called premium financing, or maybe they do I'm forgetting some of the names right now, but just different very specialized things, which typically it's very hard to get a cold prospect end user interested in because of the things that we're talking about, and there's not that trust building leading up to it. And so in those cases, typically the recommendation is, okay, build CPA relationships, because then when they have the opportunity, they'll bring you in. And so just to highlight and add any thoughts that you have, it's just, if I was offering a very specialized financial service and I knew that CPAs were the route to, bringing me in for that when that need arose, I don't know of a better way to do that than to, partner with you, create that reputation, create that education to not just a couple CPAs, but large number of CPAs. What would you add to that?
Yeah, well, I so appreciate that endorsement, Paul. And what I would add to that is just there's a lot of voices out there in the marketplace, and creating a program and a space where your ideal clients, so in this case, CPAs, can interact with you on a consistent basis and get to know you, get to know your company, get to know how you do business, get to know how you think about the problems they face and how you think about the problems you solve, and just build that credibility and build that trust. Because I think, we all have our favorite, favorite radio hosts and our favorite, commentators and our favorite, editors, right? And I think we find voices we can trust, because we can't possibly take in everything that's out there. And so I think that we get introduced to people and ideas that we gravitate to, and we tend to seek out those voices. And I think that's the key, is developing a program and a space and a platform that someone can come to and they look forward to the next time you're back and they seek your voice out, and they're going to make time in their schedule because they say, hey, like, I learned something last time. It can help me solve a problem I have for my clients. And they want to keep coming back because they know it's someone they can trust with ideas they can trust. And that just takes time.
Yeah, definitely. I think if we're going to summarize this, it's what's the long-term strategy? How do you monetize it quickly, but how do you do it in a way that's natural and leads to both the short-term and longer-term outcomes that you seek?
Yes, absolutely.
Is there any, so for our listeners, is there any final advice or anything that we didn't touch upon that you think is important, or any final advice that you have when it comes to building successfully for a financial advisor those CPA relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, this is a very, the market's changing so quickly, and something that, is really relevant, I think, to, this summer, right? Summer 2020 is, over the past few months, we've all just lived through a very incredible shift in business. There was still a lot of person-to-person referral-based network marketing that has been happening for years and for decades. And that's been part of the relationships, I think, between financial advisors and accountants and other types of consultants and accountants. And that's really, the business community is built upon relationships and referrals. And what I've observed over the past few months is those relationships and the referrals have moved a lot online. And it's still sometimes, everyone is different, but I think there's a lot more like virtual meetings. But I think that there are companies and consultants and firms and advisors who are recognizing that the new kind of like nexus and the new brand is, it might not be that, in-person monthly coffee meeting, but it might be now creating that platform online, whether it's their very own platform or whether it's partnering with someone who already has a platform, and just building that space and building that content and creating those relationships online. I think that shift that we've really like lived through and observed over the past few months, I think it's going to permanently alter like the structure of how we get to know people and how we build relationships. I'm sure that we'll have a chance to go back to some of the in-person stuff. I'm definitely looking forward to that. But I think that we're going to see a long-term shift in the structural way that we get to know people and build relationships. And I think it's great overall, because now we're no longer confined by geographical boundaries, right? Like, I'm in the Midwest, you're out West, and we have a chance to have this conversation and work together. And I think we're going to see a lot more just geographic boundaries being broken down with, what we're going to be, calling the new normal probably for a while now. So I guess if that's final advice, it's really just to, maybe think beyond maybe that traditional, like, this is my territory, this is my space, and just think about maybe more of defining a niche or a specific vertical, maybe more based around something that you're like a specific area you're very passionate about, whether it's a certain investment strategy or whether it's life insurance or a certain solution, and maybe carve out the niche that way rather than having to have a geographic niche. So that's, from what I'm seeing with the clients that I work with and my own professional business relationships, I think that's, my top of mind observation that I'd like to share.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree with that. In my case, up until 2014, I had a completely local business. I did something differently, and I never thought outside of my local geography. Everything was very local. And then I shifted and created in 2015 an online business. And so, for me, this is, just, par for the course, right? Since I've been doing it, I learned this back in 2015. And so it's interesting to me to see, everyone almost being, now being forced, because of, COVID-19, now being forced to make these adjustments. But what I learned in my journey, and what I think you're saying and what others are going to learn, is that while sometimes it can be a little bit uncomfortable to learn anything new because we're outside of our comfort zone, actually the benefits are that much greater. Because if you're really good at what you do, now you're not confined to your local geography. If you want to be nationally known as the expert in, this service. Or what I often recommend is if you want to be like the go-to person, say for a specific target market, such as attorneys, such as CPAs, such as engineers, there's literally nothing holding you back, because now the end user is also now comfortable doing things virtually. That was a limiting feature, right? It's like, I want to meet people virtually, but if my market is uncomfortable, then there's a breakdown. The fact is that now everybody's been forced to become comfortable with Zoom and other technologies, which creates a massive opportunity for those that are willing to seize it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's really cool that, it's individuals like you who can say, hey, I've been doing this for 5 years and it's all going to be okay. It's going great. But now I'm hearing you say, like, you're thriving because you're comfortable in this space, but now all of a sudden the clients you work with and their clients are comfortable in this space. And then, so now it's like, both parties are now signed up and on board.
Yeah, no, it's created a boom for my business. I've never had it so good, because now everyone's realizing what I realized 5 years ago.
Yes. You're like, I've been here waiting for you. Let me help.
Pretty much. And we're going to have in the show notes your contact information. We'll ask, is there, so for anyone that wants to A, learn more either generally about you, or B, wants to potentially reach out directly to you, what is the best process for them to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So Incorsa.com is our website. If you have CPA friends that you work with and you want to maybe win some points by pointing them in the direction of some great education, you can encourage them to visit Incorsa.com, and we would love that. Also, we have a page, Incorsa.com Present With Us, for solutions providers who are interested in putting together a program. My email address is liz@incorsa.com, and I'm on LinkedIn quite often. So I'd love to connect with anyone on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Liz.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed this conversation, and I hope their audience has gotten some good value from this conversation as well.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Paul. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate you taking the time to host me, and looking forward to the Due Diligence Summit at the end of July.
Absolutely. All right.
Bye for now.